Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport roundup podcast. I can't wipe this smile on my face because it's probably the most bizarre week of reporting we've ever had. But we are going to talk about Formula 2. We're going to talk about Aussie Supercars and the new Formula, which is actually quite good, which is the S5000 single-seater format. But we've got to jump straight into Saudi Arabia, the best, worst race I've ever seen in my life. On the edge of my seat at some times, and other times I wanted to throw things at the television in disgust. Tiff, Needell, Saudi Arabia, Formula One, Lewis and Max, my goodness.
Can I just say, Max fans out there, just turn off now, all right? Just don't bother. You have a talented driver that is going to be a world champion, going to be a multiple world champion, an incredible mercurial driving talent. But he's still the dirtiest driver on that Formula One grid. And I'm sorry, but he is. I mentioned this last year. I said, didn't I? Last week, I said, he's what we used to call a dirty driver in the old days. And it's just, I sometimes think that, he's in his 7th year of Formula One. But I honestly think because he only did 1 year of single season after karting, he's still taking his karting tricks of the trade with him. Running people wide, brake testing, which, he was found guilty in the early hours this morning. He did brake test Lewis for that instant. And and then he walked off the podium like a spoilt little kid. He's still that arrogant little child that we didn't like him when he first came into Formula One because he kept on diving in and knocking people off. And then he calmed down. And then we quite liked him for a while because he's still a character on the quiet. But this season, I just so hope now that Lewis wins the bloody championship, maybe even retires after that. I always said he still might quit if he gets that 8th title, even though he's got contracts to come back. It was an amazing drama, but I'm sorry, the tactics used on a circuit, which again, we predicted was going to cause mayhem, and it did cause mayhem thanks to Tilke's stupid bloody design with that opening the lap with a ridiculous S-bend.
That corner to start the lap was just awful. I mean, they all got through, so for those who didn't watch it, you really need to watch it. But the first start of the Grand Prix, they all got through okay. And I thought, what's Tiff on about? He's a dinosaur. He's got no idea. Twitter's right. But actually, you were right in the end.
Well, of course, we'd seen it. We'll go back to Formula 2 later. We hadn't seen plenty of But yeah, we had it all clear. And Bottas finally was up there ahead of Max. And this is all for Lewis fans. I'm not biased towards Lewis. I'm just observing the race as it goes on. And of course, Max had thrown it away in that amazing qualifying session, which still was, part of the drama was that, Did you see the Fernando Alonso looking at the screen that got relayed on Twitter?
It sums it up perfectly because it was just the most incredible lap ever, literally skimming millimeters away. The skill of that man is just phenomenal. But then, it's all about ifs and buts, and you can't say it was almost because it wasn't the best lap.
He didn't complete the lap. Alonso's eyes were out on stalks, weren't they, when he saw how Max was taking it to the limit. So then, of course, we're all going fine and the race is, that's all right. And then poor old Shuey loses on the corner, which is already claimed Leclerc in testing and claimed a couple of Formula 2 cars. It just seems to be a tricky entry that lures people into trouble. Has got a great runoff in that one place and has got a big techno pro that they've obviously developed in NASCAR in America. So then we had the first red flag. And this was the problem with the rest of the design, was there was no place to put crashed cars. So, you had to put a red flag out.
This was my frustration. This is the part I was shouting at the TV and I wanted to get onto Twitter and air my frustration because it was so frustrating. Whether you're a Lewis fan, Max fan, whatever, race fan, the race had to be stopped every time. It was awful.
I think that Tech Pro barrier, they said he had to replace a bit of it, but it was about 4 layers of it anyway. But the worst thing, of course, we came to this tyre changing rule, which they have in Formula One only. For all my racing career in every Formula, red flag comes out, you don't touch the car. It's part firm. You're not allowed to touch your car. Le Mans, any sport, any race until about 10, 15, I don't know when they introduced the Formula One. It's been a plague. There was a Monaco race, which someone had in the bag about 20 years ago, or 15, and, everyone then changed tyres. And of course, the whole strategy is thrown away. And, and of course, everyone tweeted, "Oh, you didn't say that when Hamilton changed his tyres at Silverstone." No, I did.
Imola.
Was it Imola?
Yeah.
You just weren't listening.
You did tweet that because
I hate that rule. You can't change your tyres.
It's an awful rule. The FIA, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're doing. It was, I mean, you follow Twitter as do I, and the clown emoji. I've never seen it be used so much ever to describe anyone.
Well, the theory is because you might have carbon fibre bits in your tyres. That it's a safety rule. That's where they creep these regulations in so often. To my mind, you've got 15 minutes for a restart. Well, then you can lift your car up, inspect your tyres with a microscope, and make sure there isn't any bits of shards in. So there's plenty of time to check your tyres, before the restart. So you shouldn't be allowed to change your tyres.
Okay, so I mean, that's evened itself out because, as you quite rightly said, Lewis had the same good fortune at Imola. So it's not about the driver; it's just about the fact that it's shiz ridiculous. But then
the restarts,
whatever the restarts were just
brilliant start.
Let's go back a little bit because then we had a bit of negotiation in the. Oh no, that was after. Oh, I can't.
Yeah, that's the next. I know. But the first thing to point out before we move on to the first restart is that tyre rule ruined lots of people's races. Lando Norris went back. It made Ocon's race because Ocon was one of the ones that, like Max, didn't come in and change. So that completely shuffled the order and ruined lots of people's races and helped others. So it was a rule didn't just affect, Verstappen taking the lead from Hamilton.
Very good point.
But anyway, yes, then they launched down into turn one, the lovely, well-designed Mr. Tilke turn one. And Lewis got the corner, but then Max, no, I'll take the shortcut. And the shortcut system as well, I've been banging on about for years. It used to happen in Canada with that long, long straight and the chicane at the final corner. And the leader would brake on the inside to defend, brake too late, knowing he could take the escape road, pop out in front of the exit of the corner, then back himself up to the. I haven't gained an advantage. I'm still leading. I was leading before the corner. Of course, you've gained an advantage. You've gone 4 wheels off the track, not crashed. And they've let this run for many, many years. And yet, I find Deruva in the Formula 2 race did it from the lead. And they actually made him drop the place back, which is the first time I've seen it done. I think they've actually said the lead, even though he didn't gain an advantage, they used to say, and he was made to give up the lead. So I was delighted when Verstappen did it. And then they said, when they were next in the pits after another red flag, no, you've got to give up the lead and you've got to drop the 2 places back. Who caused the second red flag? I remember now because, of course, Max was leading and Lewis had to get by Ocon and then had that gap.
Mick Schumacher was the second one, wasn't it? Oh,
no, Mick was the first one.
Straight off.
There were more crashes.
Straight off the start, there's a huge crash.
Do you see Kimi and Vettel later on in the race just smashing into each other?
Squeezed him onto the barrier. I mean, it was just incredible. Where he completely lost the place. I mean, if you lose the place, it's all good to say, oh, it's a race and let them race and to defend is okay, but when you get in that position, and you've been there many times, I've been there a few times, it's not like that. And you are talking about lives as well. Yeah. There's no way Max would be racing like that if he wasn't leading the championship. If it was the other way around,
yeah, he'd be a bit more careful. But it's fair to Max, that was a brilliant. The second restart was brilliant. He did too. He absolutely came. Yeah. I mean, the other drivers had to sort of get off the Ocon had to go right off the road, and Lewis had to go half off the road to let him complete the manoeuvre. But that was clean and very risky manoeuvre. But as you say,
we're not disputing. He could do
that. He didn't care if they both clashed because he had the championship lead in points.
He is one of the best drivers we've ever seen in this sport.
But then we had that magnificent chase from then on. We're all glued to that bloody DRS 1 second, weren't we? We're all just watching the gap all the time. And of course, that first section was the downforce where you couldn't follow section. And Max kept on pulling a second or 0.7, 0.8 every time. So that he was always clear by the time they got to the DRS zones, and then they finished a lap and Lewis slipstreamed up on the straight. Then, of course, eventually, when he did get past, with the dude, finally got to DRS. Then, of course, Max just comes down the inside, brakes stupidly late, knowing deliberately that he could go off, into the stupid turn 1-2
It's
area.
a professional foul. Whatever the Max fans want to say, I'm a fan of the driver. I don't like his attitude.
He rejoined in the lead.
It's a professional foul.
Yeah. So then we have the you've got to let him by. Then
What was all that about?
Well,
that was game.
I know what Max. They were both playing the same game slightly. I mean, Max was told strategically, by what's his name, is also pretty unpopular in most Britain's books now. Red Bull man.
JB or not Horner? It was JB.
Horner. Horner was strategically, and he's now backing up Max and getting more unpopular British fans. But so they come into the DRS. So Max knows he wants Lewis past just before the DRS, which would have given Max DRS, so he could just take the place back. So, I mean, they're both doing. So that's why Lewis, I think, was staying right behind him, saying, "Well, I'm not going to pass you until we get to the DRS." I mean, Lewis knew what the trick was. And I think Max, when they got nearer and nearer the DRS, then thought, "Oh, blooming hell, he's not going to get by me." So a little tap on the brakes.
Well, you say a little tap on the brakes, but it was 2.4 Gs of deceleration. Now,
yeah,
let's put that into perspective. 2.4 Gs, what does that mean? A normal road car, if you're braking hard, will be under 1 G. So it's more than 1.5 times what it would be. So more than two times what it would be. So it's a bit more than a tap on the brakes. It was a proper brake
Then
test.
Both cars escaped the damage.
How did they get away with it? How did Lewis get away with his front spoiler? But the rest, they said, "Oh, that's it. Now it's going to affect his downforce, and he's going to."
Oh no!
It's going to be damage limitation. He carried on setting fastest lap after fast lap, and that was what I was chuffed with, because I thought what was going to happen then. When Lewis overtook him, which he ended up doing quite easily in the end. When he overtook him, I thought, "Oh no, he should have stayed behind him."
Yeah.
What do I know? He should have stayed behind him to avoid Max jumping in for the fastest lap when Max got the 5-second penalty. As long as Lewis stayed within 5 seconds, but fortunately.
But Ocon was close enough. Ocon was that gap, wasn't it? We were looking at that. Was another. Can he stop for the fastest lap point? Can he stop for the fastest lap point? I don't think it would have made that much difference, because if Lewis had been 1 point behind, the difference between first and second in Abu Dhabi is 7 or 8, 5 points or whatever. So in fact, it might not have made that, but it was still another point.
But it certainly makes it the world tension, and it makes it so exciting. The fact they're both going into Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season. Is this the most exciting race season you can ever think of, Tiff?
I was trying to think that, but of course, there's been a couple down in Brazil's often come up with some. When Vettel was punted, Vettel was going backwards, wasn't he, in turn 2 of Brazil, and still came through to get enough points to win. And of course, when Hamilton stealing on the very last lap, by overtaking one more car. So there have been quite a few. And of course, the one at Abu Dhabi, which brought in DRS, when Alonso was stuck, wasn't he, down in 10th and couldn't overtake someone really slow. And it was really bizarre. Spent the whole, was it Ricciardo? Who was stuck?
I don't know. Maybe let us know. Yeah,
my memory's not that good. Where's Crofty when you need a statistic? Bloody hell! Yeah.
And speaking of Crofty, so we listen in the UK on Sky Sports, and we got Martin Brundle and David Croft. They are absolutely brilliant. I know you get a bit frustrated.
No, Crofty's too shouty, and too many stats. Too many. Stats.
I love the stats. I think the stats are brilliant. But Martin Brundle. He is a good bloke.
Very, very good. Very good.
And even Martin Brundle said, who is a very neutral, very level-headed man, even he said he's taken it too far. Max has taken it too far.
Yeah.
So he just said,
enough's
enough. He's taken too far. And how much longer are the FIA going to allow him to keep pushing it like this? And that penalty they eventually gave him in the end, 10-second penalty, insignificant, complete, and 2 points on his license.
For brake testing in front of a Grand Prix. It is a karting trick. These are dirty tricks that the karters probably all know about.
And but it was a proper brake test, because he brake tested and then bang, straight on the power straight away. So it wasn't a case
it was off.
Yeah, it was on off. What does that mean in terms of points? We've still got quite a few drivers to mention, but we briefly touched on Ocon. God,
it was hard to watch the rest of the race, and I poured Ocon a lot. He was driving brilliant. He did the fastest sector 1 lap time, didn't he, towards the end? Obviously light on fuel, but nevertheless he did it just to stay ahead of Bottas. Lost you on the last lap. The Ferraris were banging wheels and had a tremendous battle for what was 7th or 8th. Leclerc took the place of Sainz on the last lap, so there was a couple of last lap moves.
Do you know
Ricardo, I think, benefited from the tyre lottery, I think, as well, to get up to 4th, 5th.
Do you know Leclerc is only 32 points behind Sergio Perez in that Ferrari? So you've got Perez that's in arguably the best car all year, the best car, and lying at 190 points, and Leclerc's lying at 158 points. That's a testament. He's a bit of a dark horse, really, because he's such a brilliant driver in what is a very average Ferrari this season.
Yeah, I know Ferraris are still embarrassingly slow. I don't know. It's all. I mean, everyone who knows what's going to happen next year with this new formula. I mean, I don't know. Someone will come up with a double thingy like Dubry did. Oh, my memory's going worse and worse.
Who's Dubry? Give me a clue.
Like Braun, the double diffuser, like Braun did. You know, someone will come up with a trick with these new regulations and probably romp to the championship next year. But hopefully not. Hopefully, this new era. But boy, that was. I mean, can they go back to that track? I mean, I don't know. You know, it's such a track's going to cause those sorts of pace cars and safety cars unless they do some major changes somewhere.
But Tiff, I was honestly at a stage where I thought this is just an embarrassment to Formula One. But more people have enjoyed this race. It's created more drama than any other race I can ever remember, and it's going to be one of the most memorable races ever. So why shouldn't they leave it? And you know what? It's the same for everybody. It's the same for everybody. So everybody's got to have it's just the same conditions, same for everybody. It does mean that Mercedes do edge quite significantly in front in terms of constructors, which I know you're not worried about anyway.
No, I don't care.
So it looks like they're going to pit Red Bull. They only need 17 points from 2 of the best drivers and best cars at Abu Dhabi. Also means that Ferrari have taken the edge on McLaren because McLaren had a pretty awful weekend.
Well, Alpine have blown away Tory, haven't they?
Yeah, and you know, Alpine on the podium at Qatar and just missed the podium by a tenth of a second at Saudi. So on to Abu Dhabi this weekend. It's so tempting to get on a plane and get over there. If I had your sort of money, Tiff, I think I would.
I can't remember. I meant to look it up before we came on this one. Last year. When were they last at Abu Dhabi? But of course, Abu Dhabi's changed again. A track that's been changed to exactly what I suggested the very first year it was run. When I said, get rid of that stupid chicane before the hairpin at turn 5 or whatever it is. And they've got rid of the stupid chicane. And again, it's a Tilke thing. Going back to Saudi, this left-right, he loves tight left-rights. On the end of that back straight at Abu Dhabi, there used to be this tight left, then right, then left. And so often the outside, the DRS, you block on the inside, the bloke with the DRS gets halfway around the outside. Then, of course, the cars have to go the other way. And the bloke that's still half a car length now on the outside turns in and the wheels clash. And you just tight S's in overtaking areas are just built to make crashes. Anyway, that's gone. The end of the back straight is now a long looping corner. So we don't know how the cars are going to vary. Obviously, if the engine of the straight line speed is in Mercedes' hands, then that's going to help. But there's plenty of twiddly bits. So
Lewis has got to keep out of trouble, which he did an incredible job of yesterday. Do you know what I can't stand? I can't stand people saying they don't want him to win because of his skin colour. What has skin colour got to do with anything? I can understand Lewis cheesing off a lot of people with, you know, I'm green and I'm carbon neutral and I'm this, that and the other. I can understand that completely, but he is one of the best drivers ever.
I mean, he could be French, Italian, Spanish, Lewis. I don't care, you know, not just this skin colour that a lot of people are anti.
Drop the skin colour.
I know, but the Dutch people saying, you know, I'm British bias. It's you're a British bias. I know I'm a talent bias, and talent is Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely.
Well,
I've got
Max
bias.
Verstappen, but Max lets himself down in other areas
because he plays dirty still.
And it was dirty. Whatever you guys say, whatever you guys think, you Max fans, and I'm a fan of his. I want Lewis to win. I'm being completely brutally honest with you, but he is a dirty driver.
You'll have your world champion in the future, but he doesn't deserve it this year the way he's been driving.
But I don't understand the fans of this world. It just shows this drive of the day, which is just a bit of a farce now.
It's just that's popularity.
But I know it's popularity, of course it is. But how can Max win that drive of the day? I mean, give it to Ocon or somebody. I know he had that fortune with the red flag, but anyway,
you're getting upset. You're getting upset now. You know that works. Votes don't work that way.
I know they don't. Popularity doesn't work that way.
Of course, we can't leave Saudi without mentioning Formula 2, which led the weekend into chaos and red flags and first corner clashes. There was some spectacular sprint races. The first sprint race was actually quite good, and there weren't too many problems, a bit of this and argy-bargy. But through it all, this Oscar Piastri, who was going to pretty much be champion before he went there, he had to get a few points. But he climbed he was on pole for the feature race. He climbed up to, I think it was 4th in the first sprint from 12th on the grid, or the 10th on the grid in F2, 12th in F3, confusing. Then he won that second sprint race and then won the feature race in the pit lane under another red flag. They never even got to changing their tyres because they had that awful start line shunt, which luckily the news today is not too bad. It was Theo Pourchaire stalled and he got a big shake-up. He was released from hospital, had a problem, but Enzo Fittipaldi hit him, Emerson Fittipaldi's grandson. He's actually got a fractured heel, I've heard this morning, so very painful, a fractured heel, but not too disastrous.
But of course, that was worse because
but there was such a delay that the feature race was then shortened to 20 minutes, and that's the race they have to change the tyres. So I think the next red flag, when it was a multiple shunt somewhere, they ended the race because they'd run out of time and they never got to change their tyres. But actually, going back to that start line shunt, again, it's something I've talked about in the future. If you look at those modern single-seaters and a small driver like Enzo, they are incredibly, the centre of the car, you cannot see straight ahead of you. You're virtually looking each side for your wheels. And I've often seen these start line when they go straight to the back of someone. You say, well, why didn't he miss him? And I think there is a straight line, a straight ahead visibility that ought to be looked at. And the engineers want you as low as possible. They don't want you head in front of the air intake. But that forward visibility needs to look at, because he just piled straight into the back of him, and was lucky to get away with just his fractured heel. But no, Oscar Piastri, again, he's going to be a Mercury. He won Renault Europe in 2019. He won Formula 3 in 2020. He's won Formula 2 in 2021. He's Alpine's reserve driver for next year. And he's going to be the next super talent to join the Grand Prix grid as soon as we got rid of people like Latifi, Zhao, and those lot.
So how about if Lewis hangs up his boots at the end of this year after eight championships and Oscar? My
theory, yes, Oscar could be prized away from Alpine.
Surely
and then they'd have two rookies. They'd have two rookies. A bit of a tricky one, actually, if he does leave at last minute. I'm always a fan. I don't think this business of having experienced driver in the car is that crucial myself. I expect Alonso would be putting his hand up, wouldn't he?
I think everybody other than Max will be putting their hands up for that job.
If Alonso put his hand up, it would turn out the Mercedes are the ones that get the regulations wrong and end up with the back of the grid car for some bizarre reason. Alonso, he's always made the wrong moves, poor man Fernando. He should have won more titles. But
Fernando and Kimi, they'll both be putting their hands up. Kimi were coming back out of retirement. But F2 was exciting. It was a bit of a crash fest. Beautiful looking cars, and I love F2 because they seem a lot more level. It seems a lot more playing field with.
Dan Ticktum had a classic goodbye to Formula 2. Oh no, he's got one more race. No, they're not. They've cancelled Abu Dhabi. Of course, they're not going F2 there now. I don't think. Are they? I don't know. Sorry, again, bad information. But anyway, Dan, tell us. Dan had a puncture in the second half of qualifying, but he'd been in the top 5 most of the weekend. So he qualified 12th. So then he had to start. He was at the back of he was 12th for both sprint races, and he finished with the 7th, and the 5th, and the 10th. I think he was one to suffer from turn 1, 2 in the opening lap of the main race. So Dan, I'm not sure. Tell us, have they got another race?
I don't know.
Anyway, Piastri's won the championship. I know that he must have, because Piastri the championship was signed off.
Yeah, and well done to him. So down under.
Down under, it's a shame this year. We haven't looked at the Aussie Supercars enough. I mean, it is a fantastic racing series. Mainly we don't look, because we're always looking for British drivers overseas. We like to try and follow them and highlight them and bring news of people they don't know about. But Aussie Supercars are, to me, the best touring car formula in the world.
I love it. The big V8
and of course, Mount Panorama is their big race, the Bathurst weekend. And this year, for the first time, they had these new S5000, this formula. They're like the old Formula 5000 of the 60s and 70s. a great sort of privateer, amateur single-seater formula and reasonable budgets, thumping V8s. They only give out about 550, 600 horsepower. I think they were downgraded for Mount Panorama because the circuit is only grade 3 and there's a power to weight ratio anyway. But they look really spectacular. They had 3 spectacular races, plenty of yellow flags and safety cars down under. A couple of 5,000 cars touched at the kink, flat out 180 miles an hour and had massive spins and offs. And the supercars again had plenty of safety cars because Mount Panorama, it's just a no forgiveness circuit. You know, you go off there, there's walls all the way around the top. But just brilliant to watch the racing around that track. So we do love you down there, Aussies. I know we don't report all year long because
we got lots of Aussie listeners actually, which is really good. And of course, we had Manu, our friend who contacted us via Patreon, who even invited us out there.
He did. Yes, we're still waiting.
Expense. I know. We must do that and get a Bathurst trip going. But
I'd love to go down there, especially for that weekend. Now there's the S5000s and the supercars.
This time next year. We'll go there this time
drama.
next year. We'll do. So I think Abu Dhabi, what a climax it's going to be. I hope it does become a climax. I hope it does become a Lewis and Max show again, because those two are on a different level. Completely.
I just hope that because Max can still, if both retire, Max still got the most wins, win the championship. And I just hope if there is a clash that takes them both out, they will remember when Schumacher tried to do it to Villeneuve and got his whole season. He was thrown out of the whole year of the championship for that move he did on Villeneuve. So any hanky-panky from Max.
But I think what they need to do, Tiff, my opinion is that they should be saying this beforehand and not directing it at Max, obviously, but to say that we because otherwise he's going to be thinking, we all know what Max is going to do. He's shown us. He's shown us in the last couple of races.
Senna did it at Prost, and this is why neither Senna nor Schumacher, to me, will be the greatest Grand Prix drivers, because they both did a professional foul to win a world championship, or try to win a world championship. We did it to Damon Hill, didn't he? Did it twice, really. Schumacher did Damon Hill once, and then Villeneuve. And
he was incredible. They remind me of each other very much. Max and Michael Schumacher reminded me, and Damon Hill, he's a level-headed man as well. I know he's a good mate.
Yeah, he was very.
I thought he was very good, very pragmatic. What he said.
Paul di Resta's got a bit of shtick, because I didn't know Paul di Resta got he sued Hamilton's dad for something. I've only picked up on this on Twitter.
Wow.
They're all saying Paul di Resta's. Yeah. Di Resta was lost a drive somewhere, I think, and he sued Hamilton's dad for something that kicked off. So anyway, I'm not saying Paul's biased, because I think he's very good in what he says. I thought Paul was amazing yesterday. Yeah, I know.
And every Grand Prix, actually, because Paul di Resta said, as did Damon, as did a lot of them, they said, well, Lewis, what was Lewis playing at? He could have got past him. Lewis is playing games, but we know why Lewis didn't want to go past him, because Max was strategically trying to get Lewis over the line first, and Lewis strategically was hanging behind him. Then came the brake test. So it is.
But also, they need to add a regulation. In the old days, if you're letting someone by, but you move fully to the side of one side of the road fully and put a little hand out. If you've got a problem, you're letting people by.
I'm just saying, go by. If you need to give back a place, you wave.
Well, yeah. So if the rule must be now, if you're told to give back a place, you must pull completely to the edge of the road and indicate with a hand for the car to overtake.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Abu Dhabi prediction, I think
Lewis is going to do it. Lewis is on a roll. There's going to be tension. It's going to be massive tension.
Max Verstappen, we know you listen to this, and you'll be listening to this, obviously.
Does he? Does Max listen to us?
Yeah, bound to. They're bound to.
You're going to be a world champion many times in the future, but you don't deserve it this year.
And do us a favour. Do us a favour. Just race. Focus on the racing. None of his.
But he thinks he is. In his head.
No,
he is. He firmly believes that the way he races is legitimate.
That's not.
He's bringing karting. I know, but it hasn't got through to him yet.
And it certainly hasn't got through to most of his fans. A lot of his fans, I got to say, are really cool on Twitter, but lots are a little bit, calm down, guys, But because he is a breath of fresh air, and it is so exciting to have somebody like him on the grid. But there's a line, and I think he's crossed it too many times.
Anyway, George will sort you out in the future, Max. Don't you worry. You won't have it all your own way in the future. Even when Lewis is gone, George will be there.
Let us know what you think. Who's going to win the championship? Who's going to win in Abu Dhabi and take home the title? Let us know below. Thanks for joining us always.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.